You're listening to 15 Minutes, where we feature community leaders sharing what the rest of us should know but likely don't. Hi, Chad Franson here. I am one of the hosts of 15 Minutes, where we talk with top-notch law firms and lawyers about what it takes to grow a successful law practice. This episode is brought to you by Gladiator Law Marketing, delivering tailor-made services to help you accomplish your objectives and maximize your growth potential. To have a successful marketing campaign and make sure you're getting the best ROI, your firm needs to have a better website and better content. Gladiator Law Marketing uses artificial intelligence, machine learning, and decades of experience to outperform the competition. To learn more, go to gladiatorlawmarketing.com. Eric Boughman is an AV-rated attorney and certified mediator. He specializes in solving complex legal questions for business, tech, and healthcare clients, and in resolving legal disputes when serving as a neutral mediator. He is also a dedicated father, husband, and community servant who enjoys staying physically and mentally active. Eric, thanks so much for joining me today. How are you?
I'm good, Chad. Thank you for having me.
Hey, so tell me how you got started in the legal industry.
I took a little bit of a unique path. I didn't come right out of school and go to college and law school. Instead, I finished my high school up in the Northeast in Philadelphia. I was enlisted in the Air Force, did a little over 5 years, enlisted in the Air Force, a couple different tours, ended up in North Dakota. While I was in the Air Force, I did my undergraduate degree through the University of Maryland through a program they have with the military. And then being up in the Midwest, I went to law school at the University of Minnesota and graduated from there. And that was the beginning. I took a job in Las Vegas, worked in Las Vegas, Nevada, where I'm still licensed for a couple of years, and then came out here to Florida.
What was your undergraduate degree in?
Undergraduate degree is in psychology. And next question you may ask is why psychology or what that, why I
Yeah,
pursued that.
well, you have a psychology degree. You have obviously, anybody who's been in the Air Force has tremendous experience. When did you know that kind of law school and becoming an attorney was kind of going to be your road?
I had it in my mind. It was planted early. I think it had to do with the fact that when I was a kid growing up through middle school and high school, I was always the kid who was questioning things. And questioning, not in a bad way. I didn't get in trouble a lot, but I would question the reason why things were, question authority, try to do it in a respectful way. And in that course of that pattern, people would say, you ought to consider law school. I didn't have anybody in my family who had ever gone to college or let alone any type of graduate school. So I didn't have anybody else to talk to about it or anyone to look to for guidance. And I figured it out along the way, and it always sort of stayed in the back of my head. So when I was in the military, I thought, okay, this could be a good path. I figured out a way to get a degree while I was in the Air Force, and then use that as the launching point for law school.
Prior to going to law school, did you have any jobs related to psychology?
No, well, maybe for a little over for almost 3 years between when I got out of the military and law school. I was in the bar and nightclub business. I ran a nightclub for a couple of years.
Hmm.
So you may say that dealing with all different types of people day and night was trying to figure out how to resolve conflicts in a peaceful way when people have alcohol and they're sometimes emotionally stimulated or physically stimulated. Could be a little bit of a challenge. So in a way, maybe I did.
Sure, absolutely. I think any job related to people really uses some psychology to some degree. How do you feel like that degree has helped you in the legal industry, or if it has?
I don't. It probably does just in dealing with people generally. I do have an interest in the path of psychology was uh, primarily because as I looked at what the curriculum available to me was while I was in the military, and I did some of this when I was overseas in Turkey, and I looked at the available curriculum, looked at the path toward getting a bachelor's degree, and psychology was one of the few paths available. And then I took an interest in it. I had a professor very early on who was very entertaining and got me thinking a lot about. And I still think of things in terms of nature versus nurture, behaviorism versus innate qualities. It really comes into play, I think, in dealing with kids. So I'm an older parent. I have two young kids, and And in dealing with my children, there's a lot of times I'm talking to my wife about, behavior and behavior modification.
What about your Air Force experience? Has that helped you in the legal industry?
Uh, Only in a sense that I think any background in the military helps you develop, instill and develop and fine tune your discipline. Uh, I was a cop in the military, Air Force Security Police. Doesn't really, I don't do any criminal work now. It doesn't have much to do with what I do in my career. But it was a fantastic experience, and I certainly wouldn't trade it.
So you said you got your first kind of attorney type job in Las Vegas. Tell me about those days and the days leading up to starting your own practice.
Sure. So when I was in law school, I had a job with a law firm in Minneapolis. Nice group, was a smaller group there. I graduated. I sent out tons, and at this point, I'd been in the Air Force. I was a little bit older than most people coming out of law school. I graduated at 32, or 30, maybe, yeah, 30, and so a little bit older than somebody coming out maybe 26, 27. Uh, Tight job market. You hear that from everybody. It seemed like a tight job market at the time. I did well in school. I graduated pretty high in my class, so I had that going for me. I had the military background. I didn't realize how valuable that was until I really was into the interviewing process. And I look back now, and one of the things that I like to see if I'm hiring, if I see somebody who's got military experience, um, but I sent out, gosh, probably a couple hundred resumes and had all sorts of rejection letters. But I had a few people willing to talk to me, and it was a very interesting law firm in Las Vegas that I went out. I interviewed for a full day. I had a couple days of interviews. I had 3 days of interviews at 3 different firms in Las Vegas. This one firm in particular, I just really felt comfortable with the people there. So I ended up taking my first job in Las Vegas. It was a very unique legal community, small legal community in a big growing city. I practiced there for a couple of years. Fantastic firm. It was Lionel Sawyer and Collins was the name of the firm at the time. They've since uh, been absorbed into a larger firm. I still communicate with some of the folks that I used to with out there. And as I said, I keep my license active in Nevada. There's not that many licensed attorneys there, and you can tell how long someone's been licensed by their bar number. Unlike Florida, where the bar numbers just seem to be issued at random, in Nevada, your license number is the order of licensed attorneys. So I think they're into the 30,000s now. My bar number in Nevada is 8382. So I've got a lower 4-digit number. Um, but I stayed there for a couple of years. I liked practicing in Las Vegas. I didn't think that living there long term was going to be a good option. I got engaged to my now wife there, and we talked about it together and thought that it would be very challenging to raise kids in that environment. People do it successfully all the time, but it wasn't for us. I had some friends and family in Florida and moved out here. Went to work for a firm in Winter Park, a smaller firm in Central Florida, and I worked there for almost 10 years with the same group of people. I'm still friends with all those folks, and I work with a few of them now. So I have folks that I've worked with going back to 2005, including my law partner. We started this firm that I'm in now in 2014. We left our old firm and started this, and we've been at it since then.
What led to that? So you've been working at your own firm for about 8 years. What led to you starting your own firm?
So in my last firm, as I said, the folks there that I worked with were fantastic. I'm still friends with most of the attorneys, and we keep in touch, get together. I work with a couple other ones from that firm, uh, but I could see the writing on the wall. The person who had started that firm and was the he was the sole owner, and I didn't see a future. And I kept waiting for the future to appear. And after about 9 or 10, you get complacent if you're happy with working with the people you're working with. If the money's okay and nobody's rocking your boat, and you have stuff to do, and everything seems good. But at a certain point, especially my daughter, my first child was born in 2013, and you really start questioning, okay, where's the future here? I'm in right in the prime of my legal career, and I'm looking at somebody who was quite a bit older than me, and I didn't see the firm developing and and doing things that you would expect to do for a firm that wants to last into the future. And when I started really questioning where we were going to be in 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, I didn't like what I saw. So I was having conversations with Gary Forster, my partner now, and we just decided, he was really the one who started pushing. Once I questioned, I said, where do you see yourself in a couple of years? What do you think you're going to be doing? And then he started pushing me to, maybe we should consider doing something else.
So your firm's name is Forrester and Boughman, is that correct?
ForsterBoughman, yeah,
Forrester Boughman.
Forster, yes.
Okay. Yeah. Tell me a little bit about the early days there. What was that like once you decided to start it up?
Uh, Gosh, it was like a whirlwind of activity for several months. We decided we started to talk probably late 2013, early 2014 about making a move. Finally decided that our timing would be in the middle of 2014. So we left in July 2014, started this firm. Gary had been in talks with another attorney about potentially combining practices or acquiring another small practice that might mesh well with what we were doing. Um, we had tremendous help from someone who's been a friend and someone I look to for guidance for the last 25 years, named Tony Peasy, and he does some technology and some consulting, marketing, and he's just a smart person and someone that I trust. And it was really Gary and Tony and I for several months meeting once or twice a week in the evening, on the weekend, going over strategy, going over what everything would look like when we started. We found space and jumped off and started this office. We started out with 5 attorneys. We immediately knew we needed more people, so we hired 2 more right away and hired a couple staff folks. We didn't take anybody. We didn't encourage anyone to leave our old firm. We didn't take any staff or anybody from the old firm, but we did have people approach us, and we ended up hiring them in the long run.
So you started out with a few attorneys. What? How did you guys get clients kind of right away? Like have a need for so many attorneys right away?
Uh, so the attorneys that we had were experienced. We combined with another practice, and we essentially acquired the book from that practice and brought those attorneys in. So there was some built-in business there. We each had. I had some of my own clients. Gary had a lot of clients of his own. Uh, People had told me, when you start your firm, that people will, it gives you an opportunity to reach out to everybody, and that people will send you business. I had one client was kind of interesting. Client just sent me a check and said, "I know I'm going to need you for something, so hold on to this." Uh, and we had a plan, right away. We knew that long-term stability would depend on being able to generate clients. Gary already had a good book of business. I had some regular clients that I worked with, but I knew I needed to build more. And we started in 2014, almost right away. We started doing regular presentations. And at the time, almost everybody was doing live seminars, uh, webinars sometimes, but really a lot of seminars. And Gary and I had already been doing some. And it's an interesting issue as I look back, because the person that I was working for at the last firm, who I really think didn't have an interest in seeing people develop their own book of business, which is strange. But you understand why. If you want people to be always relying on you, you don't want them developing their own independence and their own book. And I started when I was at my old firm, started doing some presentations, and the partner there questioned that. He said he basically he told me straight out that I was wasting my time. He said, "That's a waste of time. You should be doing that." And when he said that, knowing everything else, putting the pieces together, I knew I was on the right track. And that's how we have generated and maintained a presence, I believe, is by being regularly out in the community, trying to give valuable advice, doing instruction on a regular basis. And I think since that time, every month, pretty much, I've done at least one webinar or seminar.
Would you say that that's kind of your primary method of marketing,
Absolutely, yes.
and that's worked for you?
It had, it's tough to gauge how it works because it's not an immediate payoff. Our practice, we're a business boutique essentially. We do some tax work, some high level estate planning, asset protection. I deal a lot in the business world with healthcare clients, technology folks. Uh, that's not the type of business where people usually find you by looking up on the internet or look at your website and hiring you. It's usually from a referral.
Hmm.
So that it's a different type of marketing. It's not. We have toyed around a little bit with marketing services, but it's really the results have not been good generally. So it's really a long-term play. how can you provide value to the marketplace, whether it's other lawyers or other professionals? How can you provide them value? We provide education where they can get continuing education credit for it, and and then at least you are top of mind, or they think of you at some point in the future. And it may be people that have attended some presentations that we've done over the last several years, and finally, maybe 5 years later, someone will call and say, "Oh, I got your number from this person." So it's not an immediate payoff.
You were pretty experienced both in the legal industry and in life by the time you started your own practice. Had you kind of had a feel that's how you would do your marketing and get clients that way by the time you started?
No, actually, I didn't know exactly how we would do it. Um, when I looked at other attorneys that I saw that had had some longevity and been successful, it really had a lot to do with reputation. And I knew that I wanted to be considered an attorney that other attorneys would refer clients to, not because we're drinking buddies or we went to school together, but because of a level of confidence. And candidly, when I look back now, I've been doing this almost 20 years. I was consistently one of the first people in the office in the morning, one of the last people leaving in the evening. And I worked a lot, worked weekends, and other people, you hear that from other folks who work a lot. But I think doing that over 10, 15 years, if I did an extra hour a day, an extra 6 hours, 7 hours a week, an extra 20, 30 hours a month, after a certain amount of time, you develop a level of confidence. And now I enjoy the fact that I have a lot of other attorneys who refer business to me, and a lot of attorneys who are also clients. There's several attorneys and firms in Central Florida and around the state that I have done legal work for, and some that are regular clients of mine.
Are there any milestones or turning points that you're kind of particularly proud of during your time with Forrester Bowman?
Uh, I think it's right now the stability. I'm very happy with the stability. Very happy with the fact that at this point, i- you never want to let off the gas. We are in a spot, knock on the wooden desk here, where it's almost difficult to keep up with the work. We never want to turn stuff away, but we're much more selective. Um, but there are a lot of clients. I had dinner last week at a client. We went out, and the client, his spouse, and my wife and I, and we just got a good result in a case we were involved in. And they wanted to go to dinner. They took us to dinner and gave me a nice bottle of scotch, and reminded me that we've been working together for 17 years. And when you have clients who you work with for that long, 10, 15, 17 years, and you become the person that they call for everything. And they know I don't do criminal work, but if their kid's in trouble, they'll call me and they'll ask me who's the go-to person. They may know that obviously I don't do accounting, but they'll call me and maybe ask me for, who's a good accountant. They'll call and ask me legal advice. They'll ask me business advice, non-legal stuff. That's where I think that's probably the thing now that I'm most proud of, is that I've developed that long-term uh, relationship and reputation with a lot of folks that I work with regularly.
Sure, that's great. Has there been a big challenge that you have had to overcome either personally or professionally?
Uh, I think there's nothing that jumps out specific. It's really just uh, the long term grind. And now the challenge that I'm looking at now is trying to transition to where I have probably more of a work life balance. And that's really dealing with other people. It's how do I get sufficient folks involved in the practice where I can step away a little bit more and go into more of a supervisory type role. But it's very difficult when you're providing personal services to do that. We have excellent lawyers in the office and great staff, but I haven't figured out a way to subtract myself from that equation a little bit more than I'd like. So that's kind of the current challenge right now, and I'm not quite sure how to deal with that. There's also a ongoing challenge of staff, hiring people. And I'm looking around, there's a few other folks that I see that hire, and they seem to do it really well, and they have staff and people that have been with them for a long time. Um, I'm interested to see how they do that, and I'm starting to pick their brain a little bit more.
You're mentioning work-life balance kind of leads me to the next question that I had for you. Um, what does a typical day look like? Maybe some daily rituals that you find most important, and then as you transition into this change that you'd like to see happen, how would it look differently? Ideally.
Uh, I have a very set morning routine. So I typically wake up most mornings between 3:45 and 4:30, with or without an alarm. If I know I need to get up, I've started using this. It's not a regular alarm. It's a light that mimics the sun and has some birds chirping. It gets me up in the morning. I
Wow.
get up, I walk into my shower, I turn it on, and I walk in the shower right away. So it's cold water, which not that cold here in Florida, but right now maybe in the 70s. But the cold water hits me right away. I let that wait until that warms up. Most mornings I try to meditate 10 or 15 minutes or so. I have a area set up to work out in my house, so I work out every morning, uh, and then I do a little breathing. I've gotten into the Wim Hof breathing, and that's where I got the cold from as well. And I do that in the morning. I usually have all of that done before everybody gets moving. I may get on a computer, work on something, read something I need to look at, take a look at email. I may fall down the YouTube rabbit holes sometimes. I'll look at something interesting and then it'll take me to something else. And then my kids are usually getting up. My wife and kids usually get up around 7. So where I used to leave the house and try and get out before the traffic started in the morning, now I stay home. I like to see my kids in the morning first thing. Even this morning, I had a coffee meeting at 7:30 this morning, so I had to leave it a little bit earlier. But I got to see the kids at 7, see my wife, and uh, and that's how I start pretty much every day, even on a weekend. Start like that. If it's Saturday morning, I typically still wake up between 4:30, 5 o'clock. I'll get up, and then I take naps later in the day.
Why do you feel like it's important to get started so early?
Uh, I like the quiet of the morning. When I was in the military, I worked shift work and I got used to the mornings. I even did it when I was a kid. When I was in high school, I grew up and we had a large household in a small house. I had 4 stepsisters, my grandmother that lived with us with my parents with one bathroom, and everybody else were night owls. And if I wanted to get anything done where I had to focus for schoolwork or anything, I usually had to do it in the morning. So I got up early. Military, I did that. And it just seems to be the best time to get things done. And I enjoy the mornings. It's nice. I like that quiet time.
Very nice. Very nice. Hey, I have one more question for you, but first, tell me how people can find out more about you and more about Forrester Bowman.
Sure. Thank you, Chad. The website is www.forsterboughman.com. And if anybody Googles my name, Eric Boughman, Boughman, they'll find different websites that have presentations, articles that I've written. They'll find my website. They'll also find there's other groups that I've done seminar presentations, educational stuff where you'll find that on there as well. You'll find information about my mediation practice and my law practice. And of course, I welcome anyone to reach out by email or through LinkedIn is now becoming a good source of connections.
Last question for you. If you can think of the advice that you've gotten over the years, what's either the best or the worst piece of advice you've ever gotten?
Uh, I'll tell you, there's some bad advice that jumps out, and that bad advice is what I got when I with the when I was practicing with the first firm when I came to Central Florida here with that partner who I thought was in my corner and I thought he was looking out for me, and really I think it was a lot of just self-interest. He didn't want me doing anything besides legal work. I would encourage people, and I'll take this and I'll transition it into some good advice that I've picked up. I can't point to one particular person, but there are many people. Is to get involved very early uh, in the community, in the legal community, in the business community. A great way to do that is through volunteer activities. I'm active in a few different charitable organizations, both law related and not law. Uh, and then the other thing that I have discovered, and I think this was probably, I mentioned Anthony Pizzi earlier, he's probably one of the ones who turned me on to this, is the way to be recognized as an expert in something is to teach it And if you don't know the material, then study up on it and become an expert so you can teach it. And then you end up becoming a go-to source. So if you combine those two things of learning to teach and being involved in a community, then you try to get yourself established as having an excellent reputation in the legal community. And that helps a lot, I think, later in life with generating business and clients.
Great. Sounds good. Thanks for sharing that. Hey, Eric, it's been great to talk to you. I really appreciate your time and your perspective today. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Chad. I appreciate it. Have a great rest of your day.
You too. So long, everybody. Thanks for listening to 15 Minutes. Be sure to subscribe, and we'll see you next time.